Well, aloha, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to PWT Talks NXT. I'm your host. I'm Kelly Wells. I'm hanging out here with Kevin Cattani, and we may get Nate as a guest after all. So Nate was at the show in Lowell, Massachusetts, and sitting in, I believe, the front row, kind of right in the corner, right at the end where double pin happens, of course, and then Ava comes out. Apparently, okay, so I've been talking to Nate, so I know what happened. And now I can't remember, Kevin, if we saw this or not. Did we see HBK come out there? Did you see
No,
him?
we saw Ava come out, talk to the refs, and then the screen cut.
Okay, so HBK also went out there, which Nate assumed I had seen, but it was just more of milling about and trying to figure out what to do. So I'm already starting to doubt what I saw, even though I was pretty sure I hadn't seen Michaels. But Nate was right there by Michaels.
He had a great seat.
The one thing he told me that I guess we'll have to see when this happens next week is that he said, I kind of accidentally hugged Gigi Dolan because she got shoved into me.
Oh,
so
I have to watch the replay.
A commercial for front row seats right there, I suppose. I'm Kelly Wells. Did I say that? I'm your host at Other Kelly Wells on Blue Sky. That's who I am. Kevin Cattani hanging out because we may or may not have Nate. Have you said who you are? If not, go ahead and then let's talk main event.
Sure, let's do it. So I'm Kevin Cattani, at KP Cattani on both X and Blue Sky. Come find me. And I'm excited to talk this episode of NXT. So let's get right to it.
Okay, so main event was Trick Williams versus Eddy Thorpe. This, the championship match before the Trick Williams versus Oba Femi championship match in 3 weeks at New Year's Evil. So it looked like Eddy Thorpe had the had the misfortune of being a lame duck challenger. But in the middle of I don't know if you were reading my thing in real time, but I said, it's going to be a screw job. Eddie's going to be inserted into the match. He's going to end up losing. He'll eat the pin so they can string out Oba and Trick a little bit longer. So Trick pins him, but he doesn't pin Oba Femi. So Oba's still got the right to be in a one-on-one match. That way they can drag that out to New Year's Evil.
Kelly, last week, Nate and I, the last time I was on, we were talking about what this trajectory would look like, and we both questioned how much time there was between the next big PLE, and just this sort of situation makes perfect sense now because there was too much time that you were either going to rush the match that happened tonight or push that out longer than it needed to be and then rush the Oba match. And so it all sort of makes sense now considering where the chips are falling. So,
yeah. So there you go. 11 minutes and 21 seconds. These times are probably not correct. So it was kind of a weird taping. They did back-to-back episodes, and they did the first episode an hour before we actually saw it air. So it was still, they were still shooting the first episode as the first episode started on TV. But they were shooting the whole thing without commercial, without break. And Nate said it only took 90 minutes for them to finish that first episode. And so that's why he thinks he'll be along quickly, because they kind of did it. So these match times, I've got it 10:20, 12:13, 12:02, 11:21, all but the quickie women's match. They were probably less because I don't know if they really cut much of anything out of them. But I got clocked bell to bell, counting the commercial in the middle, 11:21. So Eddy Thorpe is a guy I've followed for a long time. He was using his real name as he wrestled in New Japan. he wrestled a little in Japan, but mostly he was wrestling in the dojo in LA, trained by Katsuyori Shibata and others over there. And as a result, I really dig his ability to do strong style, even though that's not necessarily what he's being asked to do now. But I hope they occasionally turn him loose and let him do so, because he was getting pretty good at that. Yeah, that's when he was, gosh, how quickly we forget. His name started with K. That's all I can tell you. And I watched him wrestle probably over 100 matches under Carl Fredericks. Yes. Okay. Carl Fredericks was his name. And that is his name. And at one point he was so accessible that I was able to tweet him and get responses a couple of times. Now as a WWE guy, obviously he's a lot more known. He's a lot more out there. And at one point, I don't know if this is still true, he was dating Dakota Kai, who is, of course, the love of my life. So what the heck? But Trick Williams, Eddy Thorpe, how do you think Eddie's been doing? This is getting thrown in the deep end after a long time of either bottom feeding or not being on the show at all.
Yeah, firstly, your love of Dakota Kai is well documented in the annals of PWT Talks NXT, and it's a shame that just because he's closer to her, it worked out that way. Yeah, I know that Nate and I have talked quite a bit about him, and I'm a big fan of his too. I don't know any of his work in Japan, but I have very much been pulling for him since he was in the breakout tournament there when he first kind of came in with a lot of those new guys. And I feel like they kind of started off with a bang, and then they got a few new toys and he just sort of got pushed to the back. And I'm happy that he's getting this time. I guess I don't like the last 2 weeks of storytelling. Just because it's definitely heel turny, and I guess I don't see him that way. But I think they very much are throwing him in the deep end and saying, you're going to share the screen with our 3 or 4 best men, and let's see what you got. And I think if this is a put up or shut up moment for him, or if this is just we want to do more with you, but we want to know that you can handle yourself in these situations. I think he looked good in there with Trick. I think they just needs to keep working. I know I've joked with Nate a couple times, and I'm sure I've joked with you at least once, that I still hope that at some point they bring Tatanka back to be his manager if they really want to double down on the Native American stuff. Sure. Because I know I'm actually friends on Facebook with Tatanka, and he's still in very good shape, and I'm sure could take a few bumps if they needed him to. So that would be cool to see. But no, I thought the match went really well. I thought the ending was screwy enough. I suppose, I'm having a hard time sort of balancing would an interference finish have been better, or this malarkey have been better? And I don't know. I just feel like these sort of who saw it better and the referees arguing is just a little too much. At least with a distraction finish, we can blame it on somebody who is not a ref. But we'll see how the next 3 or 4 weeks play out. And hi, Brian, by the way, and hi, Azan, by the way.
They've done this a couple of times where they lay down exactly in this way. And they have the guy who's essentially underneath drape the arm over, so you can kind of see the other one's point of view, but it does look more like, in this case, it looks more like Trick's body's on him, which is called out in the chat. Trick's whole body was on Eddie at my point of view, which is true. That, I think, is also why they had Eddie get the visual pin when the ref was bumped, because Eddie can point to that even if he didn't have the better pin, and I think he will point to that. Now, Nate, I'm not going to ask you if they pointed to that. I'm going to try to ask questions that don't lead you to giving away anything that happened in that second episode.
But, I will do my best.
Yeah, let's see how your car audio sounds here. It's not seamless, but we'll see what we got. Trick Williams versus Eddy Thorpe. This was your main event. I had mentioned in the middle of the show on my recap, I did predict this would be a screwy finish to insert Eddy into the main event of New Year's Evil. So I'll just give myself a Barry Horowitz self back pat there. Yeah, main event. You were up real close and personal. So tell the audience where your seat was and what you saw.
So you actually probably saw me on TV a handful of times tonight. I was sitting on the left side of the entrance ramp. So like I got many high fives tonight. It was the best seat I've ever had for any sort of WWE event. I've sat front row in other like indie shows and stuff before, but I was right up there with everything. So what I want to know is, where did this go off the air? Where did this match go off the air?
With Ava talking to the refs, and then everything went blank after that.
Okay. All right. Because there was some stuff that happened after that.
So as I thought, as I was talking to you, yeah, we never saw HBK, but I did mention he was there.
Yeah. So so when Ava was talking with the refs and stuff, HBK winds up coming out, and like I don't know what he was saying. He was definitely saying something, even though he was literally like 3 feet away from me. I don't know what he was saying. And Eddy Thorpe then pushed him again. Yeah, I took a good video of it, but unfortunately I didn't get a video of the push. But I was like right in the middle of all of that. It was happening like right in front of me. So I won't get into what happened on next week's episode, which I just got to watch. But this match was awesome. Eddy had amazing heat in that building. He like when he first came out, when it was first like his entrance, yeah, he had some heat. But as the match kept going, the crowd kept booing him more and more and more and more. It was great. It was an awesome match. I think Eddy looked really good in there with Trick. It was hard for me to actually, even though I was sitting front row, it was hard for me to see a lot of all of the matches because I was literally standing behind two camera guys. So I didn't a lot of it was obscured by the camera guys, but the match itself, like I said, I thought it was great. They told a great story. As you said, Eddy getting that visual pin, I think definitely was a good thing in his favor for reasons you mentioned. But yeah, I don't want to say too much more.
Okay. Your audio's pretty iffy, so I'm going to mute you for now, and we'll hopefully get back to you. How long before you get back home?
I'll probably be home in about 25 minutes or so.
Okay. Well, we'll see if we're still on. Otherwise, we'll see because the audio's iffy, and I want to hear this, but I want to hear it right. Okay. So Cattani and I will take over for now. Okay. So that was our main event. And let's go to I guess let's go to the Axiom experience. We got Axiom versus Obafemi at the beginning. This one went 10-20, minus probably some time for commercials that they did not need to shoot during commercials at the time because this was an hour earlier. Obafemi, of course, wins this 10-20 with the power bomb. I thought Axiom in kayfabe wrestled the best match that he possibly could in order to try to get a win over Obafemi. I did wonder aloud, why would, even if they both had these matches booked, they could go to Ava and say, okay, we didn't know this happened. Can one of these be a week later? Or B, could you at least put the singles match after the championship match where we have to defend our titles. But I guess in kayfabe land, we're not doing that. So Oba wins. Axiom sells a rib injury along with Nathan Fraser's face injury that he's still selling from Minneapolis, where I saw him live. And then your semi-main event, although there was a lot of stuff between the last two matches, 12:02 Axiom and Nathan Fraser beat Gallus. You know, going in that Gallus isn't winning because they've been nowheresville for a long time. But it's I don't know. I wanted to get into this, but Gallus it just doesn't seem like they have any chance of winning. Axiom and Fraser, I said in my report, hear me out. These guys are treated more like monsters than Oba Femi because they are always given an out to lose, and they never do. They just beat everyone, even though they're selling an injury, doing whatever. They always hit each other accidentally in almost every match, and then they win in the end. So that's their formula. So I don't know. Once again, I'm stymied. I don't know whether I'm supposed to assume that a breakup is coming or if this is just the Fraxium experience. Brock Benningfield says Fraxium must have heat with Ava. Yes, because Ava's just putting them in every position to lose. That would actually be a funny sub-story if Ava was like, we've got to get the championships off these guys. In that, did the NXT, the hidden camera went away, didn't it? That's been a while. Yeah, it did. So, oh well. Brian Alston says, I'm not sure what to do with Gallus. Is there room on Raw or SmackDown for them? I think there might be. And this is just a weird thing that happened. But right after Gallus got beat, they showed the Raw screen, the Raw logo on the screen for no reason. And then they went back to whatever the next segment was. Hank and Tank and Javon, I think. So maybe the Raw logo was meant to mean something. But if Gallus haven't won more than a couple matches in the last year on this show, then I don't know. I just thought it was crazy to hear Vic mention Gallus held the championships for almost 500 days in NXT UK. Then they held them in 173 days or something like that in NXT. And just does it seem like these guys have ever been champion? It's just, it's odd. So, okay. So that's two matches, but on the Axiom story, and then, of course, everything surrounding Oba Femi. And if you got something on Gallus, Kevin, go ahead.
Well, I'll start with Gallus because I was a huge fan of them in NXT UK. And as I watched the entirety of that series prior to it going off the air, thanks in large part to COVID, I was hopeful that they would reemerge in either NXT or the main roster. And so it does hurt my fan heart a little bit that they're being treated in the way they're currently being treated. But now that there are two, I guess, legitimate tag teams holding the main roster tag team titles, this could be a sign that they will bring them up and maybe start rebuilding the tag division with tag teams and not singles that get pushed together because they're in a faction or whatever. So I'm going to hold out hope that this is the low point for Gallus and it is only up from here. So we'll see. As far as Axiom's match with Oba, I did not see any way that Axiom was winning that match, much like you, but I do think that he put on quite a good show. Certainly a clash of size and style, but I think, and my fan, when I have my fan glasses on, it was a really entertaining match with a lot of movement and a really big guy and a little guy, and they did a lot of cool stuff. My wrestling analyst lens says that, Axiom is a guy that can create a lot of movement around Oba. I think his selling has been getting a lot better lately, where when Oba does a lot of his power stuff, he makes it look perhaps far more impactful than it actually is. So that's a good sign too. The fact that they're, I'll say, trusting him with one of their heir apparents, I think is a good sign for him and the trust they have in him. And so, I'm hopeful for that. And I thought, again, it was a good match. I also thought, like you, the head scratch of why would you have this guy stand on train tracks before a title defense and not the other way around? But often in wrestling land, regular logic just gets thrown out the window. And then, the tag team match, you're right. They keep having the excuse to lose and they don't. I guess part of my logic brain would hope that because it happens literally every match, why are they still getting upset with each other when it happens? Like, this happens, it's not on purpose, yet you still act like, oh, this is going to be the time. And I imagine at this point they're in too deep as an organization that this will be the reason they break up. Now we just get to play the, ooh, is it this time? Ooh, is it this time? Kind of a far more wonky and less menacing version of how many times you and Tom and I and Nate bet against Shayna Baszler in PLEs, just sure that this was the time she was going to lose, and she never lost. And so now we can flip it in a zany, less menacing way to say, surely this collision is going to be the thing that breaks them up, and it doesn't. So we'll see who that team will be that will eventually take advantage of that. But they work well as a team, and I think certainly ride the wave so long as the fans are behind them, and let's see who else they can work with from a tag perspective.
And I just, I was talking with Nate a couple of weeks ago about this, and I think this might just be the act. I think maybe this is their act, and they just never break up. I mean, not never. No, there aren't any tag teams that never break up. Although it's starting to look pretty good for Kofi and Xavier, but most tag teams at some point break up. But I think this might just be the act for a while. I don't know. Azan White says they should bring a kid and have him in a 6-man with Fraxium. I mean, they could bring in Nicholas. He's been a tag team champion. He's undefeated. He could be the guy. So there they go. Keith Bennett shows up. This is Rev Keith. Says Fraxium consistently put on match of the night performances. In my opinion, they are the most underrated team in all of WWE. I hope they remain together. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could still be underrated just because they're underknown. But I think that those of us who watch NXT regularly certainly know how good they are. But I think there's still this air, and this could be what Keith's getting at, maybe, that we don't think of them as a real team. We think of them as a couple of singles guys thrown together because they don't have tag gear. They both started as singles guys, and they both have they have very differing identities. But at this point, even I think I'm not thinking of them as a real team, and I really should be because it's been well over a year. So maybe I am accidentally underrating them, even though I'm really digging the act. So that's I think an interesting point. So what do you think? And Azan says they haven't beaten a big team yet. There have been a lot of, I mean, who's been there to beat?
Well, but listen, I think Gallus kind of counts as a big team.
That was a buzzsaw. I think the audio issues just happened on my end. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think Gallus has largely been presented as a monster group. They're not tall, but they're certainly stocky guys. I also wanted to say goodnight to, where did it go? Brian Alston took off a little bit ago to go watch the show on DVR. So I want to say goodbye to him and say hello to Reverend Keith. Good to have you. I think if I were to disagree with Azan, I would say that for now and for good, bad, or otherwise, Axiom is the established name in that tag division right now. And so I think if they need a street cred building win, it's going to have to be against a main roster team that gets brought down for a spotlight or something. Because I think as far as the tag teams go, yeah, okay, yeah, see, there we go. So yeah, Azan, I agree with you. It would have to be one of the main roster tag teams that maybe aren't getting a lot of work right now or that have ties to NXT. But for now, I think they are the top of the totem pole and are sort of the measuring stick that a lot of these new teams are being measured against. Now, of course, the match would probably be a bit clunky, but I think if you wanted to get an OTM and I'm sorry I'm forgetting their team name, but the other two gentlemen who were just tussling with OTM, in stature, those guys are huge. And they would give a pretty striking visual, but I think they're too green to be taken seriously. So maybe after the new year, in this transfer window period, maybe a main roster team will come down for a bit of a rehab start, if you will, and let them go against Axiom and see how it works.
Apparently there are internet issues, known issues in my small neighborhood right now. So I'm sorry if anything is going amiss. I'll go to Zarya and Sol Ruka versus the Meta Girls. That was 12-13, counting commercial. This was a long time to go for some of these in this match. With the caveat that Zarya and Sol Ruka just went 25 minutes. But Jakara Jackson in a more long form match. And I think there's still work to do there. But Lash Legend gets the pin. Meta Girls seemingly earmarked for bigger things. They are winning as a unit on NXT, even though they've taken some losses on the main roster. But yes, they are beating Zarya. They beat Zarya and Sol Ruka when Lash finished off Ruka. So Zarya on the losing end of things for, I believe, the first time. And I mean, she didn't win the Iron Survivor, but she didn't. Do you lose the Iron Survivor? I don't know. I think that's kind of nebulous when you've got a multi-person match. But Zarya somewhat humanized here. And I question whether to do that unless you want Zarya to be the heel that it looks like she's meant to be and have her turn on Sol Ruka here, which maybe you do. I think I'm talking myself into that right now. So on the women's tag, Kevin.
Yeah, well, I definitely feel like Zarya shot Sol a look after that match as if to say, well, I thought this was supposed to go better for us. Now, in fairness, she didn't get a whole lot of work. And so I think what she is and who she is still largely protected. And of course, she didn't get pinned. But I'm kind of tear in the eye that Sol lost because I like her and I dig her act. And I also wonder, I guess that match made me scratch my head a little bit because if the intent was to feed Ruka and Zarya to them, there are plenty of women on that roster that you could have fed to the Meta Girls if you needed to get them another win as sort of your giving them their last minute prep before they go full time on the main roster. And so I guess I don't know why why you beat a star that you're trying to expose and build in a good way to two folks who are not long for NXT anyway. So I thought that was a little puzzling in that way. But Jakara and Lash are looking better and better each time they're out there. I think Jakara is really starting to show kind of her raw talent turned refined in a lot of ways, where I think she was initially sort of I mean this with only love, but sort of the B-fab of metaphor in terms of being more of a mouthpiece than a worker. And so I think the fact that she's largely holding her own in the ring, and playing well with sort of the Shawn Michaels Diesel smaller wrestler, larger wrestler dynamic, I think they can turn some heads, so long as they keep working and trying to sort of get better in the ring and get their timing down and all that. So I thought the match kind of did what it needed to do. Like I said, I was puzzled that of all the partners that you could pair with Ruka to take a loss, why Zarya? And if you do want to make her heel, there's 600 different ways you could do that don't include the turn on your tag team partner way. But all in all, it was good to see her on TV. And I'm just sort of excited to for them to give her more to do as a singles competitor.
So Brock Benningfield asks, so are Metagirls back in NXT or just a visit? And where is the rest of Metaphor? Injured still? Can't speak for sure about Oro, because his was more minor, I believe, but maybe they're just trying to figure out what they want to do with him next. Noam Dar's injury was very significant, and he will be out for a significant time. So his that wasn't just an audible they were calling with Ethan Page winning the championship sooner than maybe they would have liked to do. They really were going to run Noam Dar in that spot, and we're trying him on as a major heel challenger for Trick Williams, and that injury was pretty severe. I think it's still going to be quite a while, but I'm not sure. Ryan Solorio says they showed the HBK involvement on Twitter after the show went off the air. Okay, so there you go. The stuff that we didn't see that Nate saw. Nate was 3 feet from HBK and mentioned that, and that didn't make air, but they showed it afterwards. So not surprised that went up on socials too long afterward. One other match was on this show. This was the quickie, 4 minutes, 31 seconds. The only match without commercial break, Wren Sinclair versus Jaida Parker. I'm bummed that Wren is being reestablished kind of as somebody who's still kind of at the bottom working her way up, since she got such good reactions and did such fun stuff in the Iron Survivor. But it is Jaida. You can't ever beat Jaida. So you either have Wren beat somebody else to move up, or you just hope that she's gaining something by rubbing elbows with more important pieces. Because Jaida, for me, is practically final form. I don't know what more Jaida would have to do before she's main roster ready. She's super cool. She's badass. She looks awesome. I like her gear. I like her style. I like her hair. I like everything about her. She's a cool product, and she can really work. And she can be scary when she wants to be. And she can work badass babyface or heel. She is one of my favorite prospects. I lay this on every time, but she's one of my favorite prospects NXT has ever had. So like one of their best success stories from somebody who just came from nowhere in the business. She is one of the absolute best for me. So I'm really psyched to see what she does, and I hope she does it soon. I mean, I could see her being in the Royal Rumble next month. I really could. So yeah, not to lay it on too thick, but I like Jaida Parker. So on that one last match, Cattani.
Kelly, you're speaking so loud, and Dakota's going to hear you, and you're just going to ruin a beautiful thing. So just be very careful. The internet is forever. And also, thank you for your kind words, Reverend Keith, if you're still on. Yeah, I like her a lot too, and I think what's really cool about her story, like in real life, is she was an established athlete before getting into wrestling. And I think what I really like about the story is kind of like Bianca Belair. It wasn't a fighting sport. It wasn't MMA. It wasn't jujitsu. It wasn't taekwondo. It was a team sport. It was a kind of outside the realm of what you would expect wrestlers to do prior to wrestling. And so I think that also speaks to her awesome abilities to take the transferable skills she got from that and bring them into a setting where now she has to be athletic for longer and more physical and all that. So I think she deserves a lot of credit for that as well, because I think transitions are hard in general, but to come from a team sport to one where all eyes are on you, I think is a very interesting transition. So also, and I know that we mentioned this, and I was giving on one episode of The Fix, someone had asked a question to Todd about who are the most, like, of all the names in NXT, like, who are the most obviously fake? And he pointed out Wren Sinclair, and so I had to tweet at him that my middle daughter, or my middle child, a daughter, is named Wren. And he's like, oh, okay, well, then that doesn't sound so made up after all. So I have a soft spot for Wren in that regard. And I thought, yeah, too, that she did really good getting into the Iron Survivor and held herself very well for that. And so I'm a little bummed that she was kind of sent out to be fresh meat for Jaida. But I also think it's a good sign that if Jaida is someone that they see as kind of being ready to go up or make a show in the Royal Rumble, again, to put Wren in that position is probably a good sign for her that that's someone that can go out there and have a good match. So I'll look on the bright side for Wren in honor of my daughter, and salute Jaida for being someone who's ready to really start mixing it up with some people with some name value, and I'd love to see that kind of as soon as she's ready. So
Azan White says, does Jaida still need OTM? No, she doesn't.
No.
OTM
needs her. Yeah.
So, but I was surprised when they started having them accompany her again, because I thought that was over. At this point, they can only ride her coattails for so long. They gotta get these guys back in the ring and doing something. I don't know if this is not happening for a reason. I don't know.
For what it's worth, tonight, before the show even started, there were Jaida Parker chants. When Jaida Parker came out, she made her entrance with OTM, and they cut to commercial, the lights go dim, and the entire time everybody's chanting for Jaida Parker. So I mean, and that didn't happen for anybody else with the exception of Booker T throughout the course of the night. So she's definitely got it.
Brock Benningfield says OTM has a great look. Yes, they absolutely do. That's why I can't understand why they're not using these guys more. And I also think Out the Mud is a great name. Like, I love their look, I love their name, and I love the fact that they're affiliated with Jaida Parker. So get these guys in the ring and do something with them. Or if they don't want them exposed as guys who lose too much, maybe don't get them in the ring and just have that start happening when they get on the main roster. I guess that's an option. That last voice you heard was Nate Lindberg, and I'm going to lean on him a little bit right now, because this sickness that I've been fighting for 8 days, which is freaking whooping cough, it's still a thing, folks. It's still a thing. And some family invited it back into my daughter's high school, and I'm starting to have trouble breathing right now while I am talking. So I'm going to toss to you, and here's the thing, Nate. I've done all the matches, haven't done outside segments, haven't done the Ethan Page segment. So if you guys want to talk and if I feel better here, I'll jump back in. I'm not going anywhere, but
sounds good.
For now, I'm going to break.
Whoop that cough. Whoop that cough. Thank you, Brock. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it in the chat. So joining the podcast a little bit late here tonight because I was at the show, as I tried to say from my car, but apparently the audio didn't come through too well. The Ethan Page segment, let's talk about that because that was pretty cool. Ethan Page comes out all dejected, no entrance music, nothing like that, just music, just grabbed a mic and walked his way down. You should have got a nice shot of this beautiful face doing this and booing Ethan Page in the background because he literally walked right past me as he was walking out. But gets in the ring and essentially says that he does this for his wife, he does this for his kids, does this for his family, and he no longer loves this, and he's losing, which means his family's a loser or losers, and and things like that. Javon Evans winds up coming out and kind of gives him a bit of a pep talk, and he's like, no, we all love you, man, and trying to kind of bring him up a little bit. I'll be honest, the crowd was a little loud at this point, so I did have some trouble hearing Javon, but so I don't know exactly what he said to him, but it was definitely some sort of a pep talk or whatever. Ethan Page eventually just kind of punches him in the face, him being Javon Evans, and that kind of winds up ending that segment there, as far as I'm aware anyway, as I didn't see it on TV. But I thought Ethan was very effective in this segment. Watching him, he had the crowd in the palm of his hand throughout the course of that. We start whatting him, and he had a thing. He's like, you guys say what you want, and was playing off of that, which I think was a great veteran move. He was, I want to say, the first. And I also saw next week's episodes. I'm trying not to confuse the things that I saw tonight because I don't want to give spoilers, but I think he was the first in-ring promo type segment that I saw tonight. And it was very clear how well he can control a crowd, and just kind of how good he really is. Kevin, let me throw over to you for that Ethan Page segment. What did you think? And what do you think is going to be next for Ethan and Javon here?
Well, certainly they're about to tussle. But I agree. Azan made two comments that I agree with related to old HBK. And my whole family is sitting in my living room. We had just got done decorating and making gingerbread houses as a family. Let me tell you, it was quite the event. And we come into the living room and we're watching the show and we get to this segment and Ethan is doing the sad Corbin, down on his luck, blah, blah, blah. And I look over at my wife, who largely has no idea who HBK is or any of that storyline. And I go, if this Joker says that he's losing his smile, I'm throwing a pillow across the room. And no sooner do I say it, he looks right in the camera and goes, you know what? I've lost my smile. And I'm like, first off, if that wasn't a trigger to get HBK out of the back to be like, whoa, bro, quit biting on my stuff. Well, that should have happened.
It was it was the exact same building that Sean actually said that in.
Well, and I'm sure as Azan pointed out, let's call from the past and do it again. But I'm like, that promo that Sean cut is such a big piece of WWF history and his storyline history that to give it to someone to say it again, it just was huh? And he's not anywhere near the prestige level of HBK. And just to go through that again, I could not believe those words were coming out of his mouth.
I loved it. I loved that he said it because Ethan Page is the kind of guy who would exploit that. So I actually really liked it. And they made sure at the beginning of the show, Nate, and they may or may not have shown you this on a video screen, but they showed the losing his smile thing along with that line. So it was established on TV for a reason. And I think we're supposed to think that Ethan Page is just exploiting that for tiers. I think we're supposed to be in on that.
Well, that's fair, but all the same, certainly it worked as a lure to get Javon Evans into the ring. Now, Nate, I think he spit it in your direction, but it did look to me that certainly Mr. Evans was biting down on several blood capsules, but
Yes.
B, that he did spit one out towards the corner of the ring to the point where I saw it come shooting out of his mouth, and then the camera very obviously gravitated north of that to make sure it didn't show it beyond it coming through the frame. And I was like, okay, it looks real. My mom shrieked thinking it was actually blood coming out of this young man's mouth. I said, Mom, calm down. And of course, then he spits the plastic piece out. But I did notice that. But I'm excited to see those two guys fight. If this is the setup for a build that sees their match at New Year's Evil, let's go. I think Javon certainly has shown that he's able to move around the ring. I think that now the storyline for Javon is fool me once, shame on me, but fool me twice, shame on you. So don't mistake my humility for weakness, and he's going to come after Ethan with all the vigor and vitriol that he has. So I'm excited for that match, and I would imagine it'll probably happen at New Year's Evil. But I'm sure they're going to bump into each other a few times between now and then.
It's funny you bring up the blood capsule because it's weird in real life. When you're actually there and you see it's like this bright red. I mean, I know it's bright red on TV, but man, it's even more bright red in person. Now it's funny because I said this while I was in the car, and I don't know if it actually came through or not when I was in the car driving home right now a little bit ago. But even though I was front row for this show, the cameramen were standing right in front of me. So I was able to see maybe I don't know, 3/5 of the ring the entire time. So I didn't actually I didn't see the blood capsules until the referees were walking Javon Evans past me. As I said, I was right at the entrance ramp. They were walking past me, and you could see the blood, but you could also see, and it was funny because a couple of people behind me started going, "Oh my God, he's bleeding from his pants!" Because he had blood. I think he got some on his hands or something. He wiped them on his pants, but it looked like he was bleeding from the leg or something like that.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think they showed that on TV, but it was
no. I
said
to my wife, and that was more than one blood capsule. That was a lot of blood that came shooting out of his mouth. But yeah. I said to my wife, "What a bold move to wear white pants in a segment where you're going to be spitting fake blood, and you didn't get any on yourself." Well, it turns out he did, but we didn't see it. At any point in the main part of that shot.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It was on his left leg, and it was a pretty good size streak of fake blood on the side of his pants, and then directly after.
Did they change the mat out?
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say literally after that, I could hear a couple of the ring crew say we got to change the mat. And I think it's probably because they got some of the blood on it. I don't know. Of course.
It was all over it.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a planned thing from the change of mat, because almost the ring crew almost sounded annoyed that they had to change the mat from what I heard, but I don't know.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Because as soon as that next segment came out, I was like, oh, they must have changed the mat because it was completely clean. And I was like, I'm sure people were not happy about that.
It's crazy how fast they can do it. I mean, this show was taped. So the episode you guys saw tonight started at 7:00 Eastern. And it ended at 8:30-ish because they don't have commercials and things. So I was already into the next episode when that ended. But I forget where I was going with that. I had a point. But that, as you guys always know, my points escape my brain. So yeah. Anyway. That's what I was saying. It was crazy how fast they change out the mat, or the canvas rather. I mean, it was maybe a minute or two.
So like a NASCAR pit crew.
Yeah, seriously. All right, let's keep going. Kelly sent me his list of things, so let's keep going here. So we hit all the matches. It looks like. Well, let's talk about Vikur or Cora Jade. So I don't remember the segment offhand, so I'm going to lean on you for that because I'm thinking of the match that I saw that is going to air next week.
Spoiler? No, just kidding.
Well, they said it was going to happen, so it's not much of a spoiler. I just know who won.
Look at you leaning into the morality of all of this. No, they showed a video package. It was a Stephanie Vaquer package of her essentially talking about Cora and kind of ending with the gist of, I am going to be everything you were supposed to be. And kind of talking on the, you had a good run, but then you left and never really got it back, and now I'm here and you don't have a chance. And the ending shot was really cool because the most of the promo without the like match insets was Stephanie sort of in street clothes with some face makeup, and then she drops a line about, the devil within or whatever, and the last shot is a silhouette of her with her horns, and I thought it was a really striking image to end that.
I actually popped in just to say she said she was going to bring Cora to hell.
There you go. That's what something devil or hell, and as soon as she says the word hell, it shoots to this silhouette image with like an orange-red background, and you just see the outline of Stephanie with her horns, and I was like, oh, that was a really cool shot.
That's cool. I don't think they showed us that in the building tonight.
That's too bad because it was a good video package.
Yeah, I don't remember that. All right, let's see. We've got Dion and Carmen and Ashante. So I know again, I'm mixing episodes. I don't want to do that for spoiler reasons. So I know there was a segment with Dion, Carmen, and Ashante where was what? Oh, yeah, that's right. Dion Lennox and Carmen were talking. Dion Lennox goes to kind of comfort Carmen Petrovic, and Ashanti walks around the corner as they're hugging. And Ashanti's like, "What? I can't talk to Nikita, but you can hug other men." That type of a vibe, which is going to lead into a match for next week. I don't know if they announced that, but hey, I just did. If they didn't.
Look at this guy. Yeah. Hot take. You heard it here first.
Yes, hot take. So yeah, I guess let's your thoughts on that segment.
Yeah, I don't know, Nate, and I feel like we've talked about this relationship at least once in the last few episodes I've been on with you. I think I'm just checked out of it. Like, of all of the relationship angles that NXT has done, this one just feels the most put on and just sort of, I don't know. I'm not buying much of it at all.
Yeah.
And if it's a mechanism to get a match between the two guys, fine. But where I kind of shake my head to his detriment is I remember when they first brought Ashante and Cedric Alexander back down to NXT from being, I guess, kicked out of the Hurt Business. I remember either Shawn Michaels or somebody pulled Ashante to the side and was like, "Man, I've got big plans for you, buddy. Like, you just stay the course and good things are going to happen." And what has happened since that point? He's just been a lapdog, part-time boyfriend, part-time running away from like, I feel bad for him because I think he's talented, and certainly Cedric is getting a lot more of the in-ring work in the various multi-man matches and that sort of thing. But like, if this is the best they've got for him, I feel bad because certainly they want to make Carmen look good and she's doing well in the ring. But this sort of lovers quarrel, I don't know. I'm just checked out of it.
I'm kind of right there with you, and again, I don't want to necessarily talk too much about the taping for next week, but when this match took place, Dion Lennox comes out. I was actually texting Kelly something. I didn't even realize he was making his entrance. The crowd didn't do anything. There was some music that was playing in the background, I just figured it was like background music in between segments or something. And then all of a sudden, just Dion Lennox walks right by me, and I was, like, so nobody is into it. The crowd was pretty dead for the match.
The crowd went mid.
Yeah, the crowd went mild, very mild. So I mean, I don't think we're alone in that sentiment.
Good.
It's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm glad they're trying to do something with them, but I don't know how effective this whole angle really is, or how many people are really buying into it or getting invested in it. So let's keep going here. Dolls out, balls out. That's what Kelly wrote down in his notes. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming that is something to do with Tatum Paxley, Gigi Dolan, who I accidentally kind of hugged tonight. That was weird.
I know, we heard about that. Look at you.
Yeah, well, it was so. Again, don't want to talk too much about next week's taping, but she was out there for something, and after the cameras go off, she was pushed. Like, she's walking by me, and like I stuck my hand out to like do a high five thing, and she gets pushed like into me, and like my arm kind of just like, because of the way she pushed, like my arm kind of like went around. I was like, I don't want to be that creepy guy.
So no, like as your arm went around, your phone number was mysteriously written on the inside of your forearm.
Yeah, it's just don't tell the girl I'm dating.
I won't. Our secret.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't remember a segment.
No, they had two video segments, Nate. One with Gigi and her girls, like in a back room playing with dolls, and then the second part of that was the Fatal Influence-y, attraction-y group, like watching them play with dolls on their TV and sort of mocking it, and then it transitioned out of it. So it was kind of dueling video segments with each of the threesomes doing the thing that they've been doing.
Okay, they didn't show that in the arena tonight either. Kelly, you're muted. Kelly, you're still muted. There we go.
And I'm popping in to say that on the Fatal Influence one, we also got a real quick appearance from Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. So
sure did.
They are going to. So I don't know if you saw that, Nate, at all. Yeah, but
so I that explains their appearance in next episode. Okay,
Nate.
Cool. All right. Yep. Shutting up. Okay, right. I'm hosting now. I was waiting for Kelly to keep going, and then he popped away. Let's see. Hank and Tank and Javon Evans. I do remember a segment with them backstage. They had another segment later. I'm going to lean on you for this segment.
Yeah, it was just them kind of jiving in the back. I was kind of bummed. Also, sorry, I know we've kind of skipped over a few folks in the chat, but Reverend Keith and Brock were going back and forth giving praise to Jaida, as we all have been lauding praise upon her. And so I think certainly they're all right that what NXT is supposed to be doing, it's doing. So I agree with them. And Ryan, I also laughed when he kind of did the "that's none of my business," and that sort of thing. Like it was funny that way. But no, I guess I was a little bummed, because I'm sure it's mostly common knowledge at this point, if you're on Wrestle Twitter and whatnot, that Hank and Tank just won the tag team belts, I think, for the company that Booker T owns, Reality of Wrestling. They're the new tag champs in that promotion, and so I guess I assumed the next time we saw Hank and Tank that they'd be allowed to wear those belts, since one of the two prime commentators is the owner of that wrestling company, if I understand that right. And so I was kind of bummed they didn't get to have their belts, because I think those are the only belts they're going to get to show off anytime soon. And so yeah, it was less than consequential, in my opinion, as far as the segment went. So I don't know that you missed much, Nate.
Fair. Let's see. We had Dempsey and King in a segment. leading up to, or basically leading up to a Heritage Cup match. Again, gonna have to lean on you.
It was like
I'm trying to separate this two episodes, so
there you go.
I'm gonna lean on you for this.
Well, another segment, another fabulously fake beard style for Lexis King. So I'm sorry you didn't get to see the video package because it was another Hunger Games host-esque beard assemblage. Sorry, Kelly, you want to say something?
What I wrote during this very sweaty segment was I thought the Top Gun volleyball game was about to break out.
Well, I was just going to say it was like the worst version of an 80s workout buddy movie montage that I think I've ever seen.
Definitely.
And yeah. That. Oh man, it was like the whatever you can do, I can do better, like moves going back and forth. And Dempsey was like essentially serving as the trainer to Lexis King as they were doing these various training methodologies. It did lead to a Hulk up by Lexis King and a shirt tear off and all that, but
yeah,
it was just a really weird workout montage that just belonged in the Top Gun volleyball scene.
There's a lot of things they didn't show tonight. We saw a lot of videos for Raw on Netflix in the building tonight. But yeah, I'm really surprised because
that's a shame because I know the last couple shows I've been to, they would show all the video packages they were showing on TV. So
yeah,
I feel bad.
Maybe they did it because they were trying to fit 2 tapings into 3 hours.
Oh,
so maybe they left some things out or something like that. I don't know, but man, now I'm gonna have to go back and watch. I was gonna go back and watch tonight's episode anyway because I just want to see my face on TV.
Listen, I saw you many times, and each time I screamed out, "Oh, there's Nate!" Nobody in the living room was looking at the TV, so it was like, "Oh, where'd he go?" It's like, "Well, I'm not rewinding. I have to keep going." But he was there. Yeah. He's sitting front row.
Yep. So, all right, let's keep moving. Their loss, exactly. Let's see. I think that we had a women's division segment. I don't remember a women's division segment either.
You're on mute, Cal.
That was a really cool video package going through the history of the NXT Women's Championship.
That I did see. Okay, that I did awesome. See. So, yeah, so this was a really, really, really cool video package that basically outlined the entire history of the women's division, of the women's NXT title. Stemming all the way from Paige's inaugural win, all the way going through Tiffany Stratton. They even showed a picture of Ember Moon up there.
And Mercedes, and
exactly, yeah.
You can't not, considering how long she was in NXT. But I still, I found it a little interesting that both Athena and Mercedes got very obvious screen time in a segment where they work for the primary competitor, but also how do you not show them when they were 2 really important parts of the lineage of that belt?
Yeah. No, they also showed Mandy. They showed, I think those are the only ones that weren't in the company anymore. But, Rhea, matter of fact, they even showed Rhea's win when Tom was standing in the ring. So both Tom and I were on this episode tonight. Tom just for a brief moment, but we can say it. We can say it happened. But I thought this was a really, really, really cool way to showcase the women's division, leading all the way up to Roxy's win. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this was also the video that kind of talked about, where Roxy kind of talked about herself, and eventually turned into, a her and Julia thing promoting their match for New Year's Evil. But again, I thought this was an incredibly well done video package. I'm a sucker for wrestling history and things like that. So I just really thought it was cool to give a nod to everybody in the women's division like that. We've talked about it a lot on this show, and there was a point where we weren't sure if it was going to be the most protected title in NXT anymore, but I still think the NXT Women's title is one of the most protected titles in the company. And I don't know. It's really cool to see it get that to get its flowers like that with this video package. Your thoughts on that, as well as our upcoming match with Julia and Roxy?
So I loved that video package as well, and I know my understanding of time gets so skewed based on where I am in my school life versus my home life. But I remember a time when I was on the show and Kelly was talking about New Japan for some reason, and I made a comment that I would love for WWE to pay more word service and lip service to title defense numbers and lineage numbers like New Japan does when their champion comes out and it says, the 13th Intercontinental Champion, like where you get a sense of who was in it. And I remember all the way up until maybe Drew McIntyre, like they would routinely tell you of the lineage of the men's NXT title and how it started and progressed. And I must say that as especially the main roster has started leaning into more of those like little inset graphics, that they are showing more graphics on this is this team's 12th title defense, or they've held the belt for this long, or they won. So like they're starting to like seep it in. And I really like that because I think, and I've heard, Todd and Wade talk about it on The Fix, how like all the major companies just keep adding more belts to give other people things to do. But if you want them to mean something, then you have to build the history around them. And so I do think this video was really strong in helping us understand that Paige and Charlotte and Asuka and Rhea and like all of these just rock stars of the industry started here and won here, which not only helps legitimize Roxy for holding the belt as long as she has, but I think it's really going to help put a stamp on Julia, because as we transition into that match coming up, I think let's strap a rocket to Julia and see what she can do as the title holder. Her signing was probably one of the biggest news breakers of recent memory, and so the longer that you keep it off her, like this is not a Bianca or somebody where it's like, oh, don't worry, she doesn't need the belt. Like, let's strap the rocket. Let's see what she can do. Roxy, let's call her up because she's basically ready. And I think this would be a great transition phase. And that video did really well to help us understand the magnitude of that.
And we've got one more segment that I don't think I saw in the building either. It says so Kelly's note says SS. I'm assuming that means Sean Spears and Trick and Oba Femi. Am I right?
Sarah Schreiber.
Sarah Schreiber. Okay.
Talking to Trick, and then Oba showed up and said, I hope it's you that I get to beat for the championship at New Year's Eve.
Okay. I am going to keep my mouth shut on this one.
Can I just say that I am loving Kelly's pop-ins, and it's giving me late 90s pop-up video. Like, It's not little bubbles that are coming up, it's Kelly's face, and I'm loving the flavor text as he does it.
What's going on with me, it feels like I have a fish hook that if I talk for more than 2 sentences, the hook goes up through my uvula. That is how this feels.
That sounds terrible.
No, I'm sure it's awful. I just love that you just pop in, drop your wisdom, and drop. It's fabulous.
Yep.
Better go again.
I feel like I'm starting to lose my voice after like screaming all night. But yeah, I don't want to. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I don't want to say anything. So
knowledge is a burden, isn't it, Nate? You're learning firsthand.
It is. And I mean, I know those spoilers are probably already on the internet, but I'm not going to be the one to drop them. So
attaboy.
Yes.
Well, all the same, I am looking forward to seeing that match between Oba and Trick. I think when they eventually get a one-on-one, provided that Kelly and I early on assumed that they are going to do some sort of three-way with Eddy because of the way the main event finished in episode 1. But I'm not saying that to get anything out of you, but I do think when those two get a one-on-one, if it isn't next episode, then I think it's going to be a really cool match because I think they are going to work really well together. So I'm really excited for the prospect of that.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our segments here. A couple notes, just I guess from in person in the building tonight. I have a very new love for Vic Joseph. Off camera, he is hilarious. There was one point where, so again, this was at the end of, this was during the second taping, but I'm not going to say who it was. Don't want to give too many spoilers, but there's somebody, well, actually, no, I have to say who it was. It was Miles Bourne. Miles Bourne was on the ground kind of selling, and it was the end of the show. Vic Joseph like walks by him, and he's like, "Hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Can you hear me? Come on, I'm asking if you're okay." And it's just, it was hilarious because Miles Bourne can't hear him. He's deaf.
Did he share any candy with you?
So when he first came out, he was actually throwing candy to the audience. And I'm like, that's why he keeps a bowl of candy.
I love it.
I figured that's why he had the bowl of candy, but I just wanted to think he was on the fast track to diabetes or something like that. I don't know. But there was that. And also, like I said this in the car, and I don't know if it came through because it was one of the last things that I said before Kelly said my audio was cutting out. But the amount of heat that Eddy Thorpe had in that building was insane. From the moment his music hit, he had good heat when his music hit. But as the night progressed and throughout that match, especially after that finish, there was a point he grabbed the microphone and you couldn't hear him. It was basically like Dom, like Dirty Dom picked up the mic. It was cool. I really liked seeing that. I hope that kind of continues with audiences elsewhere in the country, such as back in Orlando. But that was really cool. Trying to think if there was anything else of note.
Nate, do you know if next week when we watch the episode, are they going to bill it again as being from Lowell, or are they going to, like, I don't remember hearing them say anything tonight about it being a 2-episode night in Lowell, but
they must, because Lowell, especially with that hard cam angle that they had tonight, I mean, it's a very distinctive building. That building isn't a typical arena. It's actually a theater. So where the ring was tonight is usually like stadium seating, and there's even a stage. The last time that I was in that building watching NXT was actually the night that Finn Balor in a house show dropped the title to Samoa Joe. That particular night they used the stage, like if you were there to see a play, they actually used the stage as the entrance ramp. They didn't do that tonight, and all of the production crew was actually up on the stage. So it's a very interesting building to watch wrestling in, because you're like, a lot of the seats up in the balcony and things, they're like, you want to be looking at the stage, not necessarily the middle of the building. But yeah, I think with the way just the way that building is, they've got to mention it. They're still in Lowell next week. I'd be very surprised if they didn't. So, yeah. All right. Anything else you guys maybe want to know from the show that I'm not thinking about?
I'm trying to think of what would Wade ask the in-house correspondent. What were the merch tables like, Nate?
So, merch table, there were a few different belts. There was the women's North American title, I believe, and then both NXT titles. One thing I do have to say, I was very surprised at how small the women's titles are when I see them in person. Like, Fallon Henley walked by me with their title over her shoulder, and I was like, that thing is that's so small. Especially compared to the full size like men's North American title. But there was a lot of shirts. There was a Julia shirt. that Jobin, who has appeared with me on this show before, Jobin wanted me to pick them up a Julia shirt, and they were sold out to everything less than 2X. It was 2X and above. Julia, there was Lola Vice. I think Jaida Parker had a shirt up there. OTM had a shirt. Trick definitely did. So did All Ego, Ethan Page. And the merch table was pretty mobbed when I got there. When I went out in between the two tapings, I went over to the merch table and there was like nobody there. So I'm assuming people, because it's a small venue, it's only like a 2,800 person. I think it's 2,800 seats, and I don't know if that is. I'm assuming that's including the seats where the ring is. It's probably a little bit less for a wrestling show, but so yeah, maybe people already went to the stands or something like that. But as far as I'm aware, in that building, there's only the one merch table. They don't have multiples around. It like I said, it's a pretty small venue.
Did you buy any souvenirs while you were there?
I did not. If they had the. So I've kind of decided I want to do a little bit of belt collecting, and the men's North American title is the title that I have my eye on next to buy. And WWE Shop hasn't had it forever. I was really hoping they might have it tonight, and I was going to buy it if they did. They did not. So where they didn't have the Julia shirt for Job, and I decided, I'm not going to grab anything. So I did not partake in the merch tonight.
Well, darn.
But I did once with a DIY shirt.
I was going to say, nice job. My buddy, who is still quite far away from actually getting married, has told my brother and a few other close friends that when he does, all the groomsmen are getting a different belt because we're all big wrestling guys. And apparently I've been tagged with the men's North American title belt. So if I get it, once look at this guy.
Sometimes you just got to get a belt with your own face on it. Just saying.
I'm very jealous.
Just saying. Yeah.
If that does happen at some point, after I'm done, Nate, if you'd like to talk business, I'll give you a great friends and family discount.
Hey, sounds good. Sounds good. All right. I think that is going to bring us to the end of our show, guys, which is weird because I didn't start the show. So I'll end it. That's fine. I'm Nate Lindberg. You can check the things I do out at natelindberg.com. Nate Lindberg on Blue Sky, which I haven't checked since I actually created it, but follow me if you want. Kevin, who are you?
Kevin Cattani. You can find me all over the Twitter and Blue Skyverse at KP Cattani. Come follow and join in the fun. And yeah, always a pleasure to be talking wrestling with you guys. And I loved the modified 3-man booth format tonight.
Yes. So I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to make the show tonight. So thank you for stepping in for me. I obviously did eventually make the show tonight, but yeah, hey, it worked out because Kelly had to tag out anyway, so that works. I'll sign off for Kelly too, so he doesn't have another fish hook in his mouth. You can check him out. I think his Blue Sky was other Kelly Wells, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.